Turn for legislative work at about 4 p.m. this afternoon. At that point, they'll have two bills to consider, including one dealing with private property rights and eminent domain. And now live to the U.S. House here on C-SPAN.
House will be in order. Chair lays before the House a communication from the Speaker.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., February 27, 2012. I hereby appoint the Honorable Jeff Denham to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, John A. Boehner, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
The prayer will be offered by our chaplain, Father Conroy.
Let us pray. Compassionate and merciful God, we give you thanks for giving us another day. Bless the members of this People's House as they return from busy days away from the Capitol. Give them strength, fortitude, and patience. Fill their hearts with charity, their minds with understanding, their wills with courage to do the right thing for all of America. In the work to be done now, may they rise together to accomplish what is best for our great nation and indeed for all the world. For you have blessed us with many graces and given us the responsibility of being a light shining on a hill. May all that is done this day be for your greater honor and glory. Amen.
The Chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House his approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Wilson.
Everyone, including our guests in the gallery, please join in. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Chair will entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan rise?
To address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to commend my alma mater, Detroit Catholic Central High School, for winning Michigan's 2012 Division I State Wrestling Championship. It is the team's 9th State Wrestling Championship. After winning the Catholic High School League title, CC dominated the district and regional meets, and in the finals defeated Oxford to cap a 25-3-0 season. Coach Mitch Hancock's team not only claimed their second title in 3 years, they are sending 10 Shamrock wrestlers to the individual state finals. Truly, the toil and devotion of every CC teammate is inspiring and well reflects upon the entire Catholic Central family, which celebrates the student-athletes' achievement. Mr. Speaker, I ask my colleagues to join me in recognizing Coach Hancock's Catholic Central Shamrocks for having earned the 2012 state wrestling title and for exemplifying the Basilian Father's teachings of goodness, discipline, and knowledge. Live and die for CC High. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, last week I was grateful to be part of a congressional delegation led by Chairman David Dreyer that established a partnership with the Parliament of Kyrgyzstan, the Jogorku Kanesh. We traveled as members of the House Democracy Partnership, which works with parliaments in new democracies to build stronger legislatures. Following parliamentary elections in 2010, the Kyrgyz Republic last year completed the first peaceful democratic transition of presidential power in Central Asia after an open and competitive election. New President Almazbek Atambayev is committed to parliamentary democracy. Under the leadership of Speaker Asylbek Jeenbekov, the Parliament and the HDP will work together to strengthen committee operations, budget analysis, constituent relations, and other institutional reforms. Kyrgyzstan is a bright star in Central Asia with a growing economy, dedicated president, the prestigious American University of Central Asia, and a dynamic parliamentarian membership working with an engaged population to establish a democracy. In conclusion, God bless our troops, and we'll never forget September 11th and the global war on terrorism.
For all purposes, the gentleman from Texas seek recognition.
Request permission to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, when the President took office, gasoline cost $1.96. Now it's almost $4 a gallon. Spring breakers in Disney World could expect to pay nearly $6 a gallon to fill up their individual cars. But Americans have no choice but to pay the higher price because the government is stonewalling a domestic energy policy. Deanna from Huffman, Texas put it best. I go to work to make money to pay for the gas just to get to work. The President's energy policy is nothing from below. Nothing from below the ground, nothing from below the sea. We're the only nation in the world that places most of our offshore territory off limits to oil and gas exploration. Meanwhile, the government continues to subsidize failed green energy projects. We should be saying yes to all types of American energy. Yes to more offshore drilling. Yes to ANWR. Yes to faster approval of permits. And yes to the Keystone XL pipeline. Let's make gasoline affordable for Deanna and all Americans. And that's just the way it is.
For what purpose, the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This weekend, many of us watched the Oscars, and among the winners of an Oscar was a documentary film called The Undefeated. The Undefeated was about a football team in Memphis, Tennessee, high school, Manassas High School, and a gentleman named Bill Courtney, who was a volunteer coach there, and went to Manassas during the 2009-10 season to try to help the kids and help them get through and have a better life. It's in a tough part of the city, a lot of poverty, a lot of one-parent households, and a lot of things to overcome. They had a football player named O.C. Brown, who was an outstanding offensive tackle. He got a scholarship eventually because of this to go to Southern Mississippi. A great ball player. And Coach Courtney worked with him and others to make sure that he got that opportunity to advance. It's a lot like, I guess, the Blind Side, except it was a story about Coach Courtney and O.C. Brown and Manassas. It won an Oscar, and it deserved it. And it's about people not giving up and making a success of things. In just under one half a semester, O.C. Brown was able to achieve a 3.0 grade average and get that scholarship at Southern Mississippi. Manassas is filled with talented young people. We wish them good luck. This hat was Isaac Hayes', a proud alumnus of Manassas High School. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time is expired. For what purpose, the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the memory of a great man who lived in my district. Charlie Peavyhouse was born in Detroit and raised in Ray County, Tennessee. A committed Methodist, Charlie earned his associate's degree from Tennessee Wesleyan College and maintained a lifelong relationship with this institution. He also received degrees from East Tennessee State University and Vanderbilt. After completing his education, Charlie went to work as a teacher and principal. Charlie touched many young lives in his career as an educator, which included serving as principal at Bachman and Fallingwater Elementary until his retirement in 1990. I got to know Charlie Peavyhouse through his work in local politics. Charlie was always a presence, whether as a Hamilton County Republican Party chair, a campaign manager, or a delegate to the Republican National Convention. He also served as Tennessee's Wildlife Commissioner under 2 governors. Last April, I joined many in Chattanooga to pay tribute to a man who inspired so many to serve. I was honored to call him my mentor. Charlie passed away February 19th and is survived by his wife Eula May and daughters Jane and Carol. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Mississippi rise?
Unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 1433, the Private Property Rights Protection Act of 2012. This bill represents a return of basic property rights to the American people, rights we are guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution. In 2005, these rights came under attack when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of a corporation taking individual homes in the name of economic development. As a result, people lost their homes to false promises of jobs and tax revenue. Now, instead of a booming business, there's only a city dump where the homes once stood. I agree with Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas when he wrote in his dissenting opinion, something has gone seriously awry with this court's interpretation of the Constitution. Though citizens are safe from the government in their homes, the homes themselves are not safe. That is why I supported an eminent domain amendment to the Mississippi Constitution, Mississippi Initiative 31, which 73% of Mississippi voters approved last November. I urge my colleagues to support property rights, the Constitution, and H.R. 1433. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose? The gentleman from Texas rise.
I ask unanimous consent to rise, address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week is Rare Disease Day, which will take place on February 29th. I want to acknowledge the work of the National Institute of Health and their effort to bring down rare diseases. I also want to acknowledge the thousands of Americans who are afflicted with diseases whose symptoms are so complex that they simply remain undiagnosed. The majority of these disorders have genetic causes, and over half affect children. The National Institute of Health has joined a worldwide effort with more than 40 countries to recognize and seek better ways to diagnose and treat patients. On February 29, the NIH is observing the 5th Annual Rare Disease Day and hosting a day-long program of activities highlighting the rare disease research community. In conjunction with that, NIH Director Dr. Francis Collins will announce the launch of a genetic testing registry. This is an online tool developed by NIH scientists providing healthcare providers and patients access to information on genetic tests. I also have legislation that would expand on these efforts. This Wednesday, February 29, the rarest of days on the calendar, will pause to honor those who are working hard to research, diagnose, treat, and empower patients with the rarest of rare diseases. I want to acknowledge the work of the NIH. I'm grateful that they're organizing an event like Rare Disease Day. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from, for what purpose? The gentleman from Morgan rise. The gentleman is, without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Last December, the Speaker told us that the Republican signature jobs bill was going to be the surface transportation reauthorization. Yet, under pressure from the extreme right in his caucus, 2 weeks ago, he said in the Republican caucus, this is not a jobs bill, this transportation bill. And they wrote, for the first time since the founding of the National Highway System, Dwight David Eisenhower, a purely partisan transportation bill in the hope of jamming it through. Well, it's all fallen apart now. Yet there are 150,000 bridges falling apart on the federal system. 40% of the pavement on the national system needs to be restored. $70 billion backlog for critical equipment in our transit systems. These could be jobs, made in America jobs. But we need to work together. Transportation is not, never has been, and should not be a partisan issue. And by trying to make it partisan, they've stalled and failed. It's time to go back to the drawing board, put together a bill that's good for America. We don't have to have partisan politics on every issue, and transportation investment should not be one of those.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute to Dr. Lawrence Newman, a beloved educator, writer, and deaf advocate who passed away on July 4, 2011. In 1953, Lawrence joined the faculty of the California School for the Deaf in Riverside. He distinguished himself as a talented and devoted teacher, becoming the first deaf person to be awarded the California Teacher of the Year Award in 1968. Lawrence's contributions extend far beyond the classroom. As a two-term president of the National Association of the Deaf, Lawrence was a tireless public advocate for deaf students, raising awareness of their unique needs and fighting for reforms in the law to support residential schools. He also fought for change from within the deaf community, encouraging sign language and total communication. Perhaps Lawrence's most important role, however, was that of a father of 5 and husband to Betty, his wife of 61 years. He is missed and will always be remembered for his contribution to the deaf community. With that, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until approximately 4 p.m. today.